guys, welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, welcome. My name is Debbie and I am a Nigerian YouTuber currently based in the UK, and I make videos around family. I make videos around lifestyle here in the UK. I make vlogs and basically just tips and tricks here and there to make settling and living here in the UK as an immigrant stress-free, seamless and easy. Now, if that's the kind of content that you're interested in, then please do well to stick around, watch this video to the end. Please go watch all of my previous videos, like this video and all of the previous videos too. Share this video please, and of course please subscribe. Please, we are trying to grow this family. Subscribe, and yes, of course, share this video to as many people you think will benefit from the content that I share. And of course, yes, turn on your post notification so that you'll be the first to get notified whenever I put out a new content. And if you're a returning subscriber, oh my goodness, thank you so much for always coming back. Thank you for all of the comments. Thank you for all the encouragement. I really appreciate it. Okay, so to the topic of today's video, I feel like this is really important, and that's why I'm putting it out there. I'm going to be talking about the challenges I faced as an international student here in the UK with dependents, and I'm also going to be talking about the mistakes that I made so that you will not make the same mistakes if you're coming in here as an international student. Very important, because I believe in riding on the wings of others. That way you do not make the same mistakes that other people have made, and your own progress will be faster. That's why I'm like, okay, you know what, let me just share some of these things that I feel like other people will be able to relate with and also learn from. I've got some things written down, so if you see me looking down, I'm just trying to look at the points I have made so that I do not get to leave anything out, because I want to give you guys the absolute gist, the absolute juice, and the absolute truth. So first thing I want to say is put out a disclaimer. Now, I am not in any way trying to discourage anyone from coming. I'm here, right? Am I not? So why would I want to discourage any other person from coming? I'm just putting this out there so that you're able to make informed decisions. So when you're coming, you know what to expect, basically, because there are certain things that I did not know, so it was more like a shocker for me. So you watching this video, it's easy for you to then, you have this idea and then you're able to, make better informed decisions. So when you come here and those things start to happen, you already have an idea of how to, go around or go about it. Now, first thing I would say, did I say first thing before? Second thing I would say is relocation affects marriages. That's like my first point. I've always heard this, but I did not know the extent to which it did affect marriages. One thing I've come to realize from my own personal knowledge and from that of other people I've heard talk about the same thing, the rate at which international students and their partners are calling it quits is alarming. That's because I think, to the best of my knowledge, that's because of the impact relocation has had on their marriage. Now, this also affected me. I didn't know, like I said, I didn't know to what extent until I was in it. In fact, when it started, I did not know it was relocation that was the problem. Now, when I say relocation, it's not just the leaving your country and coming here, but certain things that is tied to having to leave your country to another country. You're starting afresh. Everything is new. You're having to get new jobs. If you're schooling, you're having to start afresh. You're going back to school. It is a lot. Now, this affected my marriage, and it was just the grace of God, really. It was just the grace of God. Now, certain things that caused this, would I say rift or would I call it drifts between us, was number one, finances. Now, just imagine someone, a man who is used to being his own boss. He was calling the shots, had people working for him, all of that. He was the oga, oga, yes sir, that kind of thing. And then he comes to another country, or he comes to the UK or wherever it is, and then he now becomes the boy. He starts to say yes sir, or even if not yes sir, but then he is now working under people You know, it's a lot to take in. Let's even imagine that the person now, okay, is unable to get, um, in quotes, a white collar job and has to do menial jobs. When I say menial job, I don't mean it in a bad way. I mean jobs like, working in a warehouse, working in a factory, or doing healthcare job. That's like a huge shift from what the person is used. I'll use myself as an example. Back home, my husband was his own boss. He had people working for him, and I was my own boss at the same time as well. And then leaving all of that, coming into the country, and then the first job my husband did, I'm sure from, if you watch my first video, I mentioned, he got a job before we got into the country. And some people will watch it and be like, oh my God, that's amazing. Yes, he got a job, amazing. But it was a factory job. He got a job in a warehouse, actually. In a warehouse. So just imagine someone who is used to a certain standard of living. We're comfortable. Chike, we left there, came here, and his very first job was in a warehouse. Oh my gosh. Someone who is used to, like, body lifestyle, that kind of thing, and then he has to now go from that to carrying packages, carrying this one, doing like literal manual labor. The thing really affected the guy, and at the time I really didn't understand it. I didn't understand how much it affected him until after a long time, when we really sat down to talk about it. And then myself, when I started my first semester, we agreed that I wasn't going to work because I had just come in. The last time I was in school was in 2013 when I graduated from my undergrad, and this was in 2021. I'm starting afresh, well, maybe not starting afresh, doing my master's, but yeah, going back to school in another country. I had to understand exactly what was expected of me as a student. So we agreed, okay, I wasn't going to work. So term time I did not work, but December, because my classes started in September, I got here in October. So I did October, November. Classes ended, I think, first week in December. So I got a job also in a factory, because that was, like, at the time, one of the easiest jobs you could get as an international student. You didn't need much. So I got a job in a factory. Yeah, was it warehouse? No, a warehouse. Actually, I keep mixing the two of them up. In a warehouse. That was December, when it was like the peak of the cold season. This particular there are warehouses and there are warehouses. This particular warehouse, there was no heating in the warehouse. It was cold, and I was doing night shifts. And that was because, okay, my husband was doing day shift where he was working before, and then I got my job. I decided, okay, I was going to do night shift. That way, my husband, we came with our daughter. That way, my husband would, watch over her at night while I'm working. That way he's able to rest, since he was doing day shift. And of course, the pay for night was also higher. So I decided I was going to do night shift. Generally, the pay in this new place was better. So I told my husband, okay, why not apply? He applied and he got it. So he would do night shifts. Day shift. I'll do night shift. So as he's coming back from work, hello, we are leaving. I'm leaving for work. We're still staying at my brother's house then. So now that's even another thing that affects couples. The fact that you guys hardly even see each other. That's because you're working alternate hours. This one is just coming back. The other person is going, hello. Probably it's only when, say, maybe weekends. That's even if you guys are not even working weekends. That's when you get to talk and relate as as a couple. Now that's aside. So now imagine me. I have never done manual labor ever in my life, but I was working in a factory. It was hard work, like under the cold. I would wear like 2 jackets. It was doing nothing for me. It was the same thing, but for him, he was working during the day. So I think it was still cold, but probably not as cold as doing all of this. At this time, we really had no choice, because we needed to save up money to rent our own place. Remember, I mentioned in my first video that we basically used all of our money that we had saved off to sort out my 50% fee that I needed to pay down, sort out the travel expenses, all of that stuff. So all we had left was not so much. So we needed to both work to save up some money to rent our own apartment. Now, we did all of this one. By the time it was January, well, that same December, I had to stop because Christmas, there was, Christmas break, and then I was resuming school in January also. I had to stop and, get ready for the new school session. Now, by January, God being faithful, my husband got a better job where, he was working, he started working in an office. So it was more like in what we call a white collar job, And then this leads me to my next point, which is still tied to the whole strain relocation has on marriages, the pressure of bills. Now, remember that I mentioned that at this time, my husband was the main person working. He was the only person working. I only worked in December, and the money I made, I added it to what he had for us to rent our apartment, because we moved into our apartment December of 2021, So we did all of that, and I stopped working. It was now back to just him working. Now, the pressure of paying bills, it is insane. Like I said when I started, I'm not trying to discourage anyone, but this is the reality. Especially if you're coming from a country like Nigeria, where I'm from, where a lot of the bills you pay, a lot of the major bills you pay is annually. Rent, if you're paying your rent, you're paying yearly. You're paying your children's school fees, you're paying termly. That's if you're paying your children's fees, it's termly. What else? Light bill, for instance, you're paying a place where if NEPA cuts the lights, you can easily go and call an electrician to connect your bill, or even if you're doing pay as you go, they are bringing lights. When NEPA brings bill, you pay the amount you can pay, and all the rest, whenever you're able to pay up, you pay up. There is really no strict hard and fast rule to this thing. Groceries, you get the stuff that you can afford. Really, you can decide to go to, if you're able to, if you decide, okay, you want to shop from supermarket, you do that. If you want to shop in the market, you do that. You're able to live according to your means over there. And then coming here, your rents, especially, which is like the main chunk of what you have to pay, is being paid per month. And that amount you're paying per month is almost equal to the amount you're paying per year. And remember, you have just landed this new country. The job you have might not be paying so well, and then you have all these bills to pay. And we landed in winter, yeah. We had this was even before the prices of energy and gas went up. But even at that, as long as it's winter, you're using more heat because you have to heat up the house. And then our house where we presently stay is an old house. It's not a modern house. Now, old houses tend to consume more heat because they are not as energy efficient as the modern houses. So now my husband was the only one working. He was one footing all of the bills. There was so much pressure on him, and I had my own pressure, which I'm going to come to probably in the next point. So he had all of the pressure of paying bills. This took a toll on my marriage. We did not know this was going to happen. So we never even had that conversation of, okay, so what do we do when we get to this point where we are both pressured and it is affecting our marriage? We did not have that conversation. I'd always heard of, okay, relocation affects people, I did not know it was going to affect me. I did not know it was even affecting us at that time. So we did not handle it properly, and, we were beginning to drift apart. Thank God for, I'd say, the grace of God, and then the people we had around us, basically family, they were able to, come together, and, we're able to find our way back, I would say. That leads me to my next point now. Paying the balance of the fees that we had. Now, all of these things I'm mentioning are the challenges that we faced, also some of the mistakes that we faced. And they are all interwoven, they're all linked. I might still refer to some of the things I've mentioned before. Now, this other thing I want to talk about is, which still has to do with bills, is my school fees. I had a balance. Remember I mentioned that I paid 50% before I left the country, which was No, sorry, we paid 70%. We paid 70% before we left the country. So we had 30% outstanding. And now, for me, this was like a huge mistake that we made. If we had been able to pay the entire school fees, we wouldn't have had most of the issues that we had financially. I'll explain that. Now, before we came, my sister-in-law had told us that, you know what, it's best to pay your fees before you come. It's best to pay all of your fees before you come, because it is not easy to come and say, I'm going to work and pay my fees. It is not easy, especially when you have a family. It's different when you're single and you know that, okay, it's just you can do it German, work, pay your fees and, I don't know, just hustle it out. It's different when you now have other people, other mouths to feed from this same source of singular source of income. We did not understand how challenging it was going to be. We came down, we paid just 70%, and then you see that 30% was, I think it was £3,000, either 3,000 or 4,000 pounds. That was what I had to pay. Now imagine it was just my husband working. We had rent to pay. My rent is at the time was £550. We had energy bills. We had gas to pay. We had groceries. We had stuff. We had just moved into an apartment. We had things we needed to buy from just one source of income. It was challenging. Like, this is where my own pressure. I talked about the pressure on the part of my husband, which was more which had to do with paying of bills. It was just him paying bills. Now the pressure I had to face was the fact that by January school had already the plan. What school had said was when I resumed 3 months after, I was supposed to pay my balance. Now the 3 months after was in January. Now school had already sent me a reminder. I needed to pay up my 30%, and we didn't have the money. We didn't have the money to pay 30%, because where would we save the money from when all of the money that was coming in was going into all the bills that had to be paid? All the bills that had to be paid. So school was sending me a message. I was under pressure, under so much pressure. I'll come to him, how far now? The guy is trying to, okay, do we borrow? Who will borrow us? Who will even borrow you money? That's the truth. Everybody has one thing or the other that they are trying to sort out. Everyone has their own bills to pay. So it is challenging when you say, okay, when I come here, I'll look for someone to borrow me money. If that's what you're thinking, guy, rethink it, because it is hardly would you see anybody to borrow you money. Here, I'm telling you, it's even easier to get someone from Nigeria to borrow you money, and you say, okay, you'll be paying back bit by bit. It's easier because the lifestyle there is a lot different from what is obtainable here. Here, you see people living the life, a lot of it is on credit. Guys, don't be deceived. It's a good life. That way, you're able to afford, the luxurious things, all the luxurious things, you're able to afford all those kind of stuff, yeah? Good, fine, and, dandy. But it will be challenging for you to find someone who would want to loan you, especially when it comes to thousands. It's challenging. So that was, another challenge that we faced, another mistake we made, and the pressure that was so much on me. So school will send me an email, a reminder to pay your, we started paying bit by bit, and that was not the agreement. They wanted us to pay it in lump sum, but we couldn't because we didn't have the money. So they were pressurizing me, and then I was now transferring the pressure. I was now pressurizing my husband, to pay, and that will now he too will react. I'll react, and then that was how things were just happening. That's why I said all of these things are interwoven. Now this was my own pressure of having to pay my school fees. And I will say it here, the best thing you can do for yourself as an international student, yeah, is to pay your fees 100% before you land the country. Or at least have a plan of how to pay your fees when you come here. Don't come here with the hope of, I would work to pay my fees. People say that all the time, and a lot of students have had it hot back to back just because of that mistake. I know certain people that have had to, dropout. Would I say dropout? Yeah, they had to stop going to classes because the school sees locked them out of the website because they were owing school fees. People will not tell you this thing, but see, guys, it is not as easy as I'll come and then I'll pay my fees, I will work. Do you know how much you're going to be earning as as a student? You're able to work just 20 hours. That's if you're working, except you then have your dependents. So even if your dependent is working and you're working your 20 hours, it is still not that much to say, okay, I'm going to save up all of my money. Now imagine you have kids. There is childcare cost to consider, because if your husband is working during the day and you have to go to school, where will your children be? That's another thing. In fact, that's another point entirely. That's why I say all of these things are interwoven, really. These are challenges that international students face that a lot of people might not want to talk about, but it is serious. It happens. So the best thing you can do for yourself when you're coming here as an international student is to pay your fees 100%. That way you come here and you're able to study without any pressure. Your spouse is able to work without the pressure of, I have this bill to pay. I have how many thousands of pounds to pay. Where would they get that money from? Is it from working minimum wage jobs? So that is one mistake that I feel like we made, that we could have avoided. If only we had paid the school fees before we came, all of that pressure would have been avoided. Okay, I've talked about school payments. Now, another thing I'll talk about is the childcare cost. It's expensive, guys. Childcare here is expensive. Unlike in Nigeria, where you probably have family, your friends, you can just drop your kids with and go out. It's different here. You can't just take your kids and drop them off with a friend or with a neighbor. Talking about neighbors, you can be here and you don't even know your neighbor. You can stay in the house for 2 years. You don't know the person living next door to you. That's how it is here. If you have to take your child, your kids to probably daycare or nursery where you have to pay, it's not cheap. So that's one thing to also consider, the cost of childcare. Because I remember when I had to go to school and I needed to put my daughter in daycare. The cheapest I saw around my area then was charging £45 per day. That was £180 per month. This was the cheapest. And mind you, it's not even about, okay, the money is available or not available. Even the space sometimes is not available. Because I remember I called a lot of nurseries I saw around. They did not have space. I called my council for them to give me nurseries or daycare centers that were closest to my area, which they did. A lot of them did not have. It was just one that had space, and that was where she eventually went to. I mentioned they were charging £45 per hour. That's another challenge that I had to face. But good enough, my school at the time, they still had the online option. So because at the time we're just getting out of COVID, so they still had option for people who had not yet gotten into the country. So I had classes twice a week, but I was only in school once a week, 1 day a week. So it was just one day that I would.
I want to join.
You want to join?
Yeah.
Okay, just come and sit. Oh dear, she's back from school. Say hiya.
Hi.
Don't talk. Are you sucking? Okay, so it was just 1 day a week that I would take her to the daycare. Are you sucking? It was just once a week I would take her to the daycare center, which was good, which was actually.
Daycare center.
Come on, Mommy's talking. Do you want to go meet Daddy?
No.
Would you be quiet?
Yes.
Okay, and don't talk, okay?
Okay.
So that for me was another challenge that we faced, having to sort out daycare. But God being so kind, I was in church one of those days, and one of my family friend, amazing personality, came and just randomly just, oh, what's going on with you? How are you? How is this? How is that? What's the plan for this? What's the plan for that? And then I mentioned, oh no, I intend to take her to daycare since I have to go to school. It was like, oh really? Okay, how much is it? And then I mentioned, it was like, don't worry, just send me your account number. I would send you I would sort out the daycare. Eh? Just like that, without asking, without even saying anything. And that was how this person covered her entire um daycare fee for the 3 months I was going to be in school. That was how I didn't have to pay a dime for daycare. That's amazing, right? Yes. But if I was going to pay for daycare, it would have cost me £190 every, see, it's £190 every month for 3 months. Remember I mentioned I wasn't working. It was just, careful with your leg, focus with the camera, sit down properly. Remember I mentioned that it was just my husband working. Now adding £180 to the bills that the man already had to pay. Why wouldn't his body be peppering him? So anyways, that's another thing to consider: cost of childcare. If you've got plans, if you've got family around, where you can drop, or if you're in an environment where you have other Nigerian students with kids, you guys can just plan it. Okay, you know what? The days when if you guys are going to school
just stop talking. Just come back. Just coming back, everyone.
Okay, you're coming back. Where?
I'm just going to get Kayla's cat.
Okay, that's fine.
I got in
Okay, that's fine. So you guys can say, okay, you know what? Since you're going to be home on so day, you take care of our kids, and then when you guys just shuffle. When this other person is going to be home, they will take care of the kids. Just look for like a cheap alternative, really, because childcare here is expensive. That's one challenge that I would have had, but God helped us take that over. Another thing that, thinking about it now, yeah, we could have planned it better, and that was having a baby while I was still schooling. Now I had my baby in September. Just as I was submitting my dissertation was when I had her. Cora, you're interrupting my video. Just as I was as I was turning in my dissertation, I had my baby, because I finished officially on the 30th of September. I had my baby on the 27th of September. Now, meaning that I took it in December of 2021. Yes, we had planned, okay, you know what, okay, let's do it this way. We'll have a baby so that, before you finish school, you'd have had the baby. We did not consider a lot of things. We didn't consider a lot of things, because if we did, we probably would have made a different decision, let me put it that way. And that's because, number one, remember that my husband was the only one working, and we had already agreed that, okay, for my first semester, Cora, if you're going to be here, please sit down properly. For my first semester, I wasn't going to work. But for my second semester, I had planned to work. Now, I got pregnant, and unfortunately, I couldn't work because first 3 months, I was pretty ill. So I couldn't work. So that meant my husband continued footing the bills and carrying the burden of, would I call it a burden now, but yeah, having to sort out all of us, which then added to the pressure he had on him and the strain between us, because he was the only one working. Now, if we had planned it in a way that, okay, you know what, when I'm done with school and I get a job, we can now start planning for a baby, because you know that here, once you have a job and you're having a baby, you're entitled to your maternity leave. It could be 18, it could be 12 months. Yeah, it usually is 12 months, but then you have certain months that are paid in full, certain months that you now have like certain percentage of your normal salary being paid, which makes a lot of sense. But we did not, that's I would say one of the mistakes that would I call it a mistake now? Of course, my baby she's amazing, we love her, she gets, but if we had probably planned it differently, the strain wouldn't have been as that's I like making my videos before she comes back from school, really. So, but really, if we had planned it differently, it would have probably been a bit easier. And the pressure that my husband had, because in the end, I did not work at all. I only worked in December of 2021 when I came, because I couldn't work the first 3 months. That's January, February, March. Even if I wanted to do 20 hours. And then April, May, I couldn't work because I was doing my dissertation. And at the time, even when I wanted to work, it was almost like, you're already too heavy. What job do you want to get? Is it factory work? I couldn't do factory work at the time because of my tummy. Is it warehouse work? Is it healthcare? So in the end, I did not work at all. So there was just a lot of pressure on him. For us, I would say that's one mistake that, would I call it a mistake now, that was a decision that we made that we probably should have thought about properly, but it's amazing. Someone said I have 2 certificates. I have my certificate from school and my baby. So do I regret that at all? No, I do not. Was it easy? No, it wasn't. It was super duper challenging. It was. So another thing I would want to talk about, this one is more like a challenge, is the council tax. Now, as a student, you are entitled to exemption, to council tax exemption. As a student, you don't get to pay council tax as a student. However, we have to pay council tax, and that's because when we're renting our apartment, we had to put both my name and my husband's name on the tenancy agreement, which meant that we had to pay council tax because my husband was working full-time. I was a student. They only gave us I think maybe 20% discounts. We had to pay that. And the council tax is not £50. So what we had to pay was over £100 every single month for council tax. Which includes the exemption. We had called the council. Oh, my wife is a student. They were like, oh, well, as long as it's both your names that are on the tenancy agreement, you guys have to pay council tax. And we did not know this before then because, of course, we have other students who, who live in apartments or houses and are not paying. Apparently, it was because both our names had to be on the tenancy agreement. We had called the agency and they said, no, that as long as both of you are over 18 years, your names have to be on the tenancy agreement. So now imagine we have all of those bills. You have the house rent, you have the gas, you have the energy, you have the groceries, you have upkeep, and then 100 and something is also going in for council tax. Guys, it was a lot. That first year was really challenging. It was really challenging. Looking at it, if we had known that this was what was going to happen, we would have probably looked at an alternative. Something just so that we do not have to pay that because £100 out of taking out £100 out of the amount of cash you have to pay in bills is something. I'm telling you, even if it's to go into savings, that's something. So we probably would have looked for an alternative to just ensure that we didn't have to pay that, but we didn't know, and we had to pay the 100, and at a point we're paying 150 in council tax. So those were some of the challenges that we faced, some of the mistakes that we made in as international students. I was just going through my list to ensure that I didn't leave anything out. So yes, guys, it is not so rosy when you come here your first year. People always say this: when you come, don't expect crap. Please don't do that, okay? Don't expect that it's going to be rosy because a lot of times it isn't. Yeah, some people probably find it slightly easier, maybe because they have a lot of savings. They come here with a lot of savings, so they have little or no financial pressure. But most people, when they come here, there is a lot of financial pressure. A lot of international students are having to, separate from their spouses, maybe because of pressure, or people come here and they change. Relocation changes people. This is legit. It happened to us. It affected us so bad, so bad. But God was just so merciful that we were able to find our way back, to each other, and we're here today. A lot of people didn't have it that good, or by the time before they could even salvage anything, the whole thing was already done. So guys, if you're coming into the country, it's good to sit down and have this discussion, have everything, thought out, have a plan for everything, so that when you guys are, doing all of that, you're able to make proper decisions, or better informed decisions. So I just thought to come share my story, really, to come share my challenges, because from my first video, someone had dropped a comment that, oh yeah, it's looking like it's you made it seem like it's all good and all rosy. Tell us the challenging parts, which of course I had already initially even planned to do, in a separate video. That's why I'm like, I'll just do this. I'm going to talk about this. Still a whole lot of things I'm going to talk about on this channel. I'm going to talk about, housing costs. I'm going to tell you how we got our own apartment, the things to consider when you're trying to rent an apartment, documents you might need. It's a lot sometimes, but yeah, we're going to delve into all of these topics. I just thought it would be a good time to, come share with you the challenges that we faced and some of the mistakes that we made, so that you guys would learn from it and, make better decisions, basically. So I think I'm done. I think I'm done. Thank you so much for watching till the end. This is quite a lengthy video. I didn't want it to be this lengthy, but I hope you learned a thing or two from all that I said. I just hope I wasn't rambling and talking and not making sense. I know I made some sense. Yeah, but I hope you enjoyed watching this video, and I hope if you're intending to come here, I hope you have learned a thing or two, and you're able to make better decisions than we did. But yeah, thank you so much for watching. Please subscribe. Please give this video a thumbs up. Share this video to as many people as will benefit from this video. Thank you so much, guys. Take care. Bye. Bye.
Bye.